So welcome to WTF, Stories and Advice. I'm Caroline Cranshaw, and today I am super excited to have the beautiful, amazing Deidra White, who is a business owner, an activist, a writer, currently getting even a higher degree. And you're currently living in Kentucky?
Yes.
Correct? Yeah. So, I'm just so excited to have you on. And you have written to me before, and you're writing to me, telling me about what's kind of going on in the environment over there and what's happening. I was just horrified with some of the stuff you said. So I thought we should definitely have a chat about this and hear what you have to say. So welcome.
Yeah, I appreciate you. Thank you for having me. I really love that you're bringing awareness and you're really speaking out on things that need to have a light shined on them. So thank you for having me, and thank you for what you're doing.
Oh, thank you for coming on. So tell me about what's currently happening in your state and
one thing to speak positive before I kind of dig in here. Our new governor, Andy Beshear, he's a Democrat, and he has been very proactive with the coronavirus and things of that nature. So when the Breonna Taylor case kind of first surfaced and everybody started hearing the details, I had 100% confidence that Andy Beshear was going to do what was necessary, that things were going to move forward swiftly. And we're looking at 3 months, and there's only been one officer fired. And it's egregious. It's egregious that we're sitting and watching them take down statues and do kind of everything that other than what we're asking for, which is to charge the 3 officers that murdered this woman in her home in the middle of the night with no warning.
Yeah. So can you, for people who aren't familiar with the Breonna Taylor case, can you just give a little background on that?
Breonna Taylor was a emergency rescue paramedic, and she also was studying to be a nurse. So she was out there helping. She was helping the community. She was somebody that was loving, kind. Everybody that describes her says that she was just the most likable, lovable person. And she was at home in the middle of the night with her boyfriend, Kenneth Walker. They were asleep around 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. Police kicked in her door, fired 21 shots into her and at her, and she was hit 8 times and killed instantly. And they used something that they called a no-knock warrant, which means they don't have to identify themselves, they don't have to knock, and they were also in plain clothes. Now, the issue with the case is that Kenneth Walker thought someone was robbing them. Because if somebody kicks in your door in the middle of the night with no warning, you're going to try and defend yourself. So he fires 1 shot. They returned with 21 shots, hitting Breonna and killing her instantly. The problem with this issue is the person that the warrant was issued for was already in police custody and did not live at Breonna Taylor's home.
Oh my God.
And there's a cover up that is happening that is so blatant. And we're wanting the attorney general here to do something. The FBI is investigating. They've bumped the case up to the attorney general here in Kentucky, and nothing is happening. They fired 1 officer. 2 officers have been reassigned on administrative duty, but that means they're still working, and no charges have been filed against any of the 3 officers. Subsequently, searching the home after they killed Breonna, they found no drugs, no money. There was nothing of the sort going on in her home. There was not enough evidence to even issue the warrant or for the warrant to be signed by the judge that signed it. I mean, just everything about this case says that these officers need to be charged and nothing's happening. And people want justice. They want justice for Breonna. And unfortunately, nobody's moving the way that things need to move here.
Yeah, I mean, it just sounds like it was a colossal fuck up right from the beginning, right from the top down. But even the cops are given those orders, they still should be busting into a house with no warning in the middle. Anyone would do that. I heard they also charged him with attempted murder of a police officer, right?
Yes, they did. And the judge dismissed that. They dismissed the charges against Kenneth Walker. Now, the
Good.
interesting thing about this case is Breonna Taylor's mother, Tamika, when she gets the call in the middle of the night that something's happened to her daughter, no one tells her anything. And she's done several interviews about this, that she gets to the hospital, she waits for 4 hours, nobody tells her anything. She gets to Breonna's apartment, she waits for hours, nobody tells her anything. The cops are questioning her, like, did Breonna Taylor have any enemies? Did she have a problem with anybody? The evidence that is turned over from this case, there's no body injuries on the police report to Breonna Taylor, and they know that they hit her 8 times. So there's just this
What?
blatant cover up of what's happening and what has happened. And it honestly makes the police look guilty. Like, anybody in their right mind would have charged these officers already. The warrant went missing. When the mother asked to see the warrant, they couldn't find the
Oh,
warrant. I don't think they still haven't produced the warrant. But then
really?
there's a cover up for the judge that signed the warrant,
Of
with no
course.
evidence. And it's just, all of it is just egregious mishandling of everything, of everything. And for them to let these cops just be reassigned, still working, still going to draw their pension. Brett Hankinson is the officer that was fired, and he has a history of harassing people and using excessive force and planting drugs on people, and should have been off of the force, should have been off of the
Mm.
force. But with everything that's happening in America, it's really shining a light on how these cops have been moving, on how they've been dealing with the communities that they service. And it's time for change. It's time for change here.
Yeah, well, you were telling me about how you going to protest about this, and how there was actually, and the turnout wasn't as good as as you thought it would be, but that recently, or like right before this, several cops were arrested because they were planning on going to a protest and shoot people.
There were, I want to say it was 6 officers in Wilmington, North Carolina, and somebody recorded them and posted it, thank God, to shed light on it. But they were sitting around talking about how they were going to come to the Breonna Taylor rally in Kentucky and shoot up the protesters. But this is nothing new. Of course, thank God they were fired, subsequently after
Yeah.
hearing all this. But this is nothing new. We had a city council meeting in Lexington, Kentucky 2 weeks ago, and it was, of course, done over Zoom, and they had the chat and they had people calling in. And there were so many racists calling in, saying the N word, calling Black people monkeys, saying that they were going to
Oh,
kill the protesters, bomb the protesters, lynch the protesters.
oh my
And
God.
for hours, the city council just looked helpless and did nothing, and allowed these people to basically commit hate crimes during a city council meeting. So
Oh
these are
my
the things
God.
that Black people have and always have dealt with here in this country. And it's just fuel being added to the fire with this idiot that we have in office over here.
Oh, did you see today? Well, I saw in the news this morning about how he retweeted a video of a Trump fan yelling "white power."
And he thanked them.
I am literally at a loss for words that the president of the United States is posting things with white power. And because, I mean, to me, it almost seems like racism is getting worse. Like, I mean, I don't think it's not that it's getting worse, not that it was better before. Now it's just that they feel more free, that they can come out and say these things and do these horrible things because it's coming from the top down.
It's definitely an empowerment when you have the president tweeting, saying racial slurs and things of that nature, calling Black countries shitholes and things. Excuse my language, but
No,
our
go
president
ahead and
did it.
swear.
But calling Black countries shitholes, empowering white supremacists and white nationalists here in the country. So what you're seeing now is a revealing. You have people that have always felt this way, but they feel empowered to let it out. And
Yeah.
I'm not even upset about it as most Black people are, because I'd much rather know who you are. I'd much
Yeah.
rather you speak your mind and I know what type of person I'm dealing with. We thought, of course, most people thought, Black people always knew that racism was gone when Obama became president, but we still always had to deal with it. And now what Trump has done, which I can actually thank him for, is for revealing who America really is. There's one thing about this coronavirus and the murder of George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor and Elijah McClain. It is a
Yeah.
revealing of who America really is, what they are really about. And now we have to face it. It's like a boil. It
Mm.
hurts. You're going to have to bust it open. It's going to look nasty. The pus is going to come out. It's going to be disgusting. It's a nasty way to look at it. But
Yeah.
in order for things to heal and get better, we got to go through this process. And people's minds need to be changed. And I'm seeing a little bit of that. I do have some hope, but with what we have in office, there's definitely been a revealing of who people are, your neighbors, people that you're at the grocery store with. You're seeing it more now.
Yeah, it's crazy. And like Elijah McCain, it's I just that case is just unbelievable. This poor young massage therapist, vegan, walking home, doing nothing wrong. I think the only thing he was doing wrong was he was wearing a ski mask because he was cold, because he's just a skinny little thing. And he spent his free time playing his violin to like the animals at the animal shelter, like he wouldn't even kill flies, and they just like attack him for no reason, police officers. And so they tasered him, they injected him with ketamine.
Yes.
Like they murdered this poor innocent kid who was doing nothing wrong, and he's begging for his life, and he literally is doing nothing. I cannot, and I don't think anything's even happened to those guys yet.
No. And this was a year ago this happened.
What? Oh, was it?
This isn't even recent. This is a year ago this happened in Aurora, Colorado. And it's just unfortunate. I mean, he was a self-titled light giver. He liked giving light to other people, and just a sweet kid. And he's pleading with the cops, I wouldn't even kill a fly, and they're still just steadily taking his life as he's pleading with them to please not do this. But this is nothing new. We have Tamir Rice, we have Sandra Bland, we have Atatiana Jefferson, who was playing video games with her nephew in her mother's home. When you go back, and Botham John eating ice cream in his living room, and this lady gets 5 years max, maybe. I mean, these things, Black people are being killed doing everyday things like anybody else would do, for no other reason than the fact that they're Black. And these things have happened and have been happening, and we've been yelling and we've been screaming. So that's why you see this type of rioting. I don't even like calling it riot. I call it uprisings, because you see frustrations in our community rising up to the surface. When people have marched peacefully, Colin Kaepernick tried to kneel peacefully. We have literally tried everything, from bus boycotts to talking to people in political power. We have tried everything, and it's just this frustration that is welled up. And honestly, when you have a country like America that was built and rooted in racism, it was rooted. At the foundation of what America is, racism is there. You can't trim that type of a tree. You can't trim the bad leaves off and think it's going to be better. There needs true restructuring, true reform to policies. I don't care about them burning down a Target right now. Those things to me are not what we need to be worried about. We need to be worried about how we're going to restructure, how our Congress and Senate are going to move forward on trying to restructure and do new reform, so the police will be policed. Their identities are kept secret. They can't be charged when they do things like this. There's so many policies that are in place to protect the cops, but no one is protecting the Black community here. And it's terrible.
Yeah, the other thing you mentioned is that the Klan is very active and harassing people, killing people. I'm just gobsmacked. Like, I knew the Klan still was around, but tell me a bit more about that. Like, what's happening there?
So I got a notification from my sister that the Klan was riding around in 10 different states looking to harass, beat. And right before we got the notification, there was a woman in New York. Her body was found hanging from a tree. There were two black men in California, 50 miles apart from each other. Their bodies were found hanged. And there were three more instances of black people being hanged in front of the capitals and in front of courthouses under American flags. And the police they're calling these suicides. And we know what they are. This is not a new death. These are old deaths that we're seeing. And it's terrible that you can't even call it what it is, which is lynching. They're lynching us. And honestly, I don't think it's ever stopped. When you go back and look at police reports that have been filed in Texas for decades, they have found black men hanged from trees with their arms tied behind their backs, and of course labeled them suicides. So this is not new. This has always been happening, and it's continuing to happen. And I was just reading an article today. The statue in front of the White House that was trying to get pulled down last week, they're charging those men with felonies. But people that are running in people's houses in the middle of the night, just because they're police officers, no charges have been brought. So you see the the hypocrisy in what's happening over here.
Yeah. Oh, it's insane. Yeah. I mean, first of all, people don't tend to hang themselves in public places. Right? Like, how many people do you know that have actually committed suicide who actually did it in a public place? They just don't. They hang themselves in their garage. They hang themselves in their house, their closet. They don't hang themselves. You don't go, I'm going to go down to the courthouse and hang myself with my hands tied behind my back.
Exactly.
Well, yeah. And what is it? They don't want to investigate the people doing it. They don't care. I just don't understand.
Well, there was an article that was written about the Elijah McCain case, and they actually went into all these other things that they call Colorado a K state. The laws are not for the people in Colorado. The laws are for the slave masters. And they're basically telling all the things that cops have done in the past, just to people that live in Colorado. These cops get away with severe misconduct. And the department has had trouble recruiting officers of color, although the city is only about 46% white, but they will not hire black police officers. So you have to remember what the police department started for. The police department was founded back in the early 1900s, and it was basically put in place to police these newly freed slaves and to lock them back up. Ava DuVernay has a great documentary called The 13th, where she shows you the timeline of the abolishment of slavery, how that turns into locking slaves up. And now you're in prison, but you're still doing the same plantation, labor. You just have stripes on now, and this leads into mass incarceration. But this organization that they call the police department over here was specifically put in place to police black people. It's not broken. It's doing exactly what it was structured to do. The police department is not broken. I have to repeat that. It is doing exactly what it was designed to do, which is suppress, oppress, harass, and lock up black people. And it's still doing that, and people are fed up. And the great thing about the fed upness that I'm seeing over here, if that's a word, is these young white kids that are coming out in droves. I mean, kids from K-pop shut down Trump a week or so ago, which I think is hilarious. But these kids, they're calling their parents out on TikTok. They are really the force behind this movement. It would not go as far as it had if we did not have white allies coming out and standing beside us and using their voice to amplify our voice, because we've been yelling this for decades. We've been yelling this for a century. You see the things that have happened in the past, and everybody wants to look past them. This Tulsa rally that Trump was throwing the weekend of Juneteenth, which commemorates slaves being freed after 2 years after they were supposed to have been freed in Texas. Him trying to throw a rally that weekend in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where they had the Black Wall Street massacre. I mean, you see what they're trying to do over here, and for those kids to thwart that, him trying to do that weekend, I think it was hilarious. And I hope everything keeps moving forward. I just really, really want a positive movement and for things to keep moving forward the way they are, and things to change in government with policy and reform.
So, what do you think needs to happen with like the police department, for instance?
Minneapolis was trying to move forward with dismantling the police department and actually putting another organization in charge of policing the community. And I think that's exactly what needs to happen. When they talk about defunding police, which, that word kind of triggers people, I think it was $193 million is the budget for the Minneapolis Police Department, but the youth organization there to help at-risk youth only got 250,000. You
Yeah.
know, if you put more money into your communities, if you put more money into at-risk youth, into your school systems, one argument I keep hearing about with this movement that's kind of started over here is that black on black crime, but you all kill each other, but you all keep killing each other. And you saw the horrible thing that happened in Chicago. But what people need to understand is at the root of all these issues that you want to say, but you guys, it's still an economic system that was set up to oppress, and these are just symptoms of it. So
Yeah.
when you talk about what you want to see done, I want better education in poor neighborhoods.
Mhm.
I want better banking practices in poor neighborhoods and in black communities. I don't want to see black people being stifled in any type of way. We just want the same rights that everybody else over here has. And when you take away a community's resources, you
Yeah.
take away the jobs in a community, people can't provide for their families. You take away an education system or the money from the education system where people aren't being taught and they aren't getting the education that they need to go further in life. When you take away the ability to create wealth or gain equity or even get mortgages through redlining and all these things that have been done for decades. When you take away people's access to all these types of resources, what you see is drug addiction. What you see is people trying to self medicate. What you see is people that are just lost and they're hopeless. So you see drug dealing, you see violence, you see crime, you see prostitution. But if you go into a poor white community or a trailer park, I live in Kentucky, I see it all the time. You have these same issues in poor white communities. It's not a black problem, it's an economic problem. And it, and
Exactly.
and I just want to see equality. I want to see equality in banking practices. I want to see more money in public education. I want to see better education in these schools. I want to see more access to resources that other communities have for black and brown communities that need these types of things in their areas. And once we get a leveling out of the playing field, you will slowly see the diminishing of the drug addiction. You will see a diminishing of the drug dealing. You will see a diminishing of the violence. Kimberly Jones is an author here, a young black woman, beautiful, very articulate. She has a video out called How Can We Win? And it's very aptly named. And she talks about America being a monopoly game
Mhm.
where white people have been able to play for 400 years, you
Yeah.
know, and they play for 200 years without us able being to gain any type of wealth or access to any type of wealth. And then when we finally can play and we get towns like Oklahoma City, Tulsa, Oklahoma, with the Black Wall Street, and we get money and we get some sort of advancement, they come in, they bomb. They come in and they
Yeah.
burn down. They come down and they massacre. And then we get to start all over from scratch with nothing. And once we start all over, there's all these rules and guidelines and restrictions that black people have to abide by in this game that no one else does. And
Yeah.
it's aptly named How Can We Win? Because if we're being restricted in all these ways and other groups and ethnicities here aren't, how can we win? How can we have any pride in who we are? You take away a man's ability to feed his family, what are you doing to that person? When you have these areas that are so violently unkempt and the policing there is nothing more than other massacres added to the massacres they're already seeing, it's just a devolving of sorts that nobody can come out of. So I really just want money poured back into these communities. I want the banks to wake up and realize that we need the same opportunities that other people have.
Yeah. so, so do you think, hallelujah. I mean, God, that's amazing. Yeah. So do you think Joe Biden's the man to help do that?
Oh Lord, poor Sleepy Joe. I I like Joe Biden. I mean, he's that
Yeah.
likable uncle, and I like Joe
Mm,
Biden when he was vice president for Obama. Um,
mm,
what you see with Joe Biden being elected as the Democratic nominee over here, what you're seeing is Black people wanting to vote for Bernie Sanders, but
oh,
knowing that
same.
white people would not vote for Bernie.
I
So,
would.
so you have what we're trying to pull is that Republican that does not want to vote for Trump will vote
Mm,
for Joe Biden, but will not probably vote for Bernie Sanders. So then you
yeah.
Black people shifting their vote to a candidate that we feel like Republican white people that do not support Trump will shift their vote to. So as much as Black people loved and supported Bernie, we just did not feel that Republican right wing people would vote that far left. So everybody is
Yeah.
just like, I mean, let's push Joe Biden because he has a better chance. And
Mm,
it's unfortunate that we kind of get, you know, I like Joe Biden. I don't have an issue with. I'm an Elizabeth Warren girl myself. I loved her.
yeah.
I loved her
Yeah.
campaign, but anybody than other than Trump at this point. I mean, just
Yeah.
anybody that has any type of real leadership. I mean, if you look at what's happening with our numbers at the coronavirus over here, it's astounding. I,
Oh,
I
oh my God.
honestly think that they're shifting towards something called herd immunization, where send them all out there, let them all get it. Whoever lives, lives. Whoever dies, dies. and and then everybody will be immune. I mean,
But the
the
thing is, they're not. Do you know
no.
that? Yeah, that's the thing is people are getting it 2 or 3 times.
Oh
People
God.
are not, yeah, people are not getting immunity. After even a month after having it, they are finding no antibodies in the blood. So, and the people that do have antibodies are the ones that got so sick they almost died. So
Oh Lord.
there's there's not going to be a herd immunity to this, and it's terrifying. That
It
that
is.
I find, yeah. You know how many cases we have in New Zealand right now? We had zero.
Look here, you all's prime minister is killing it. I love
Oh,
her.
yeah, that's what happens when you put an unmarried, pregnant woman with a stay at home boyfriend in office under 40. She is a badass bitch who is, yeah, she just doesn't give a fuck. She's just gonna, I mean, we had no deaths and she just locked us all down. Locked us all down so bad that I was pissed, to be honest, because I was like, you mean I only can go to the grocery store and that is it? That is all I'm allowed to do, and I will get arrested if I am going out for any other reason? But she was right. Like we had zero cases. Now I think we've got maybe 10, and the 10 cases are all from people coming back in who are in quarantine. So
Right.
it's not out in the population. They did do a colossal fuck up where they didn't test a whole bunch of people. They just put them in the quarantine and then didn't test them. And then they let 2 little white girls out early without testing them, who came from the UK to visit like their mother who was dying. The mother died. So they let them out and they had it. And so everyone is like, oh, Jacinda's, doesn't know what she's doing. And like all the good that she's done, she's just getting nailed. But if that's like the worst that's happened and they didn't
Yeah.
spread it to anybody, like, hello,
Yeah.
and like I got paid to stay home and I have free medical care. And it's just, yeah, like for me, people go, oh, socialism, blah, blah, blah.
Oh God.
Well, number one, it's not socialism, but I have to have major surgery on Wednesday and I'm not paying a cent, like not a cent. So with the best, like one of the top surgeons in New Zealand, I have 3 nights in the hospital afterwards. And yeah, because I'm having a hysterectomy. But yeah, I was talking to a friend of mine and she's like, oh, you know how long people stay here in the hospital? 1 night. Yeah. So she's like, oh, because insurance doesn't want to pay for it. I don't really want to stay in the hospital personally anyway. So I want to go home after a day. But it's just, yeah. And the thing is, I don't pay more taxes than I would in the States.
But what you're seeing over here with our Constitution and what people truly believe, anytime you talk about free healthcare or free education and things that Australia and New Zealand have and have had for years, Switzerland has it, Costa Rica has it, for Christ's sakes,
Yeah.
they throw out those trigger words: socialism, Marxism, communism, and it's not
Yeah.
that at all. These things, the right to education, the right to healthcare, these are all human rights. But
Yeah.
over here in America, we don't have human rights. We have civil rights. And
Yeah.
civil rights says you have the right to speak your piece. You have the right to carry guns. You have the right to do this. But everything over here is monetized. And it is
Mm,
monetized so harshly that they're trying to get blood from a turnip, and it's ridiculous. There will
yeah.
be no middle class in the years moving forward. The rich will continue to get richer, and the poor will continue to get poorer until, there's just nothing that we can do. And you're seeing it happen over here. Like, no, you all, anybody from New Zealand that may be listening, she is killing it compared to what we have over here. So yeah, Joe
Yeah.
Biden. Right now it's always when you're in a presidential election year, it's always the lesser of two evils. I
Mm,
voted for Hillary Clinton. Did I like her?
mhm.
No, I don't like her at all. Did I like her more than Trump? Yeah, I did. And that's kind of what we're dealing with over here is just no leadership. When the Ebola virus hit years ago, when Obama was in office, the first thing that he did was send aid to them over there. He sent
Yeah.
resources, he sent health workers, he sent a way for them to help contain it so it wouldn't get over here. Where you see
Yeah.
the opposite happening with Trump. He would not send aid to China. He would not send any help over there. He almost laughed in their face when they were getting hit so hard, not realizing that if you don't help them contain it, it's going to get over here. And that's
Exactly.
just, we have no leadership. We have no real leadership over here. It is a mishandling of completely across the board. The entire country is on fire. Everybody is pissed about something, whether it's being forced to quarantine, whether it's Black lives being murdered in the streets with no repercussions. Everybody is upset about something, but this is what happens when you do not have effective leadership. We've
Mm.
got elections coming up soon. I'm begging people, I'm urging people, please get Mitch McConnell the hell up out of there.
Oh my God.
I don't care if it's Chris Booker or Amy McGrath. Just get him the hell up out of there. These types of
Yeah.
things happen at the top in with
Mm.
policy and how they're handling things of this nature. And you just see a kid up there. He's more worried about people talking about how he drinks water and walks down a ramp than he
Oh
is
yeah.
worried about the coronavirus and the whole country imploding before his very eyes. And it's just terrible. So hopefully Joe Biden pulls it out. I mean, but Trump doesn't have voters. Trump has
Yeah.
a hive like Beyonce or some shit. You can literally tell them anything about this man, and they refuse to see the truth. Just a
Oh.
willful ignorance these people have over here.
Have you seen there's this video I posted on Facebook where this guy interviews people outside of the Tulsa rally,
Mm-hmm.
and it's unbelievable. I'll put a link to the clip. It was on the Daily Show, and he's just interviewing people, and they're just like, oh, I love him, and he's like, oh, what about and he's not guilty. They're all talking about the investigation and the impeachment and how it was no evidence, and he was like, well, if there's no evidence, then he's got nothing to hide, right? And they're like, yeah, he's got nothing to hide, and he's like, well, why don't we just let everyone testify and give all the evidence? And then they're like, no, no.
Right.
And it's like, well, if he has nothing to hide, then why is he hiding stuff? Didn't you get them in a way to say if you hide stuff, you're guilty. And then just when confronted with the evidence, they're like, well, I don't care.
No.
Yeah. And like grab him by the pussy. And it was like, oh, well, that's locker room talk, blah, blah, blah. I mean, can you imagine if Obama said, grab him by the pussy? Like, first of all, Michelle would smack his ass, but Second of all, I mean, like, who the fuck talks like that? Yeah. So he was like, oh, just Lockerman talk. So do you talk like that? And he just like asked all these men, do your sons talk like that? And everyone was like, well, no. But and he's like, who talks like that? And all I could say is Donald Trump. Or some woman who was like, oh, well, when I think of president, I think of only a man, and, men are presidential. Women, she's got hormones. And so if she got a hot flash, she could start a war. And he's like, haven't all wars been started by men? Yeah. And she's just like, oh, and she's like, I don't know. What do you call it? And he's like, misogyny, voting against your own rights, or voting against your own interests. And she's like, yeah, that's it. Voting against my own interests. And you're just like, you dumb bitch. If you're Trump, I know. And I get hate mail from Trump supporters. So I try not to talk about it, but I cannot help it. If you support Trump, then I have to think you're a racist. You're not very intelligent, pretty much stupid. And you have this, agenda that's terrible. But I think people just have this belief that if we give to other people, we're going to lose out ourselves. And it's like, I'm not paying for them. I'm not paying for those people. But it's like, pay now or pay later. But you're going to pay. You are going to pay. You know what I mean? I would rather pay now and look after kids and people that don't have enough. Because if I don't, they're going to grow up, they're going to be disenfranchised, they're going to have no other way of making money, and they'll resort to violent crime. They'll resort, and I'm sorry, there's way more white people that are drug dealers by miles. And like Ronald Reagan's war on drugs, and he made it so that the charges for crack cocaine were like 10 times worse than regular cocaine. Yeah. So it's like if you got caught with cocaine, it was like a slap on the wrist and, maybe a month in county jail. But if you got crack cocaine, it's 10 years in hard prison. It's just like, what the fuck? It's the same drug, but it's a way of keeping people down.
It is. It's mass incarceration and over sentencing Black people is something that they implemented back in the late 70s. Angela Davis has been begging people to listen to her about these types of issues since the 60s and 70s, and nobody paid attention. Nobody would listen. And you're seeing the effects of it now. The documentary that they did on Netflix about Khalif Browder completely explains in so much detail, in a real way, what they're doing to Black and brown kids that get locked up over here. Schools have become a school to prison pipeline, to where you're suspended, you're in detention, you're expelled, we're putting you in juvie, you get out of juvie, you go back to school, you're 2 years behind. Now you don't want to be in school because you're so far behind. You wind up doing something ignorant, you're back in juvie, and you're just grooming these kids to wind up in prison because it's the new form of slavery. The reason Ava DuVernay's documentary is called The 13th is because the 13th Amendment says that everybody has the right to be free unless you commit a crime. So you have people in prison working for 22 cents a day. And why in the hell would I pay somebody $22 an hour to build this car or pick these potatoes or fix these roads when I can pay Black and brown people 22 cents a day? So America, was founded on slavery, and it's still founded on slavery. What is America, like 5% of the global population, but we have 25% of the imprisoned people in the world? I mean, this country is still, you look up Victoria's Secret and all these types of Google just ALEC and find out what is being made in your prisons. It's so many things that you buy in Walmart, and you think you're not supporting prison labor, but you almost can't shop here without supporting prison labor in some shape, form, or fashion. I mean, Idaho potatoes, for Christ's sakes. It's just ridiculous what you're seeing over here. And this madman, on top of everything that he's not doing to help the country, he's fueling this alt-right white supremacist bullcrap. And it's a powder keg waiting to happen. And I've been telling people for years, like, this is going to get worse before it gets better. This is going to get worse before it gets better. And these people they just keep loving him. It doesn't matter what he does. It doesn't matter what type of evidence you have. I mean, you can show them video footage. It's almost like this mindless zombie idolization where nothing you say or nothing you show them is going to change their mind about this person. And it's a sickness. It's actually sick. That Trevor Noah does these things on the Daily Show where he says, 5 years ago in Obama news, this is what people were worried about. And it's like Obama wore a tan suit somewhere. He wore a tan suit somewhere. Or Obama and Michelle had a date night. Oh my God, how much did that cost us? And you're listening.
Assholes. Oh.
And compared to these things that you're seeing Trump get away with, it's night and day,
I just think of like when George W. Bush was elected. And I remember I was living in New Zealand and I cried. I cried in front of a big group of people. And they were like, it's not that bad. And I said, you don't know. This is going to be the worst thing that's ever happened. And I miss the days that we had George W. Bush as a president now. I thought we will never have anyone as bad as that. And even he fucking hates Trump. And like, it's talking sense. Like, I think
hates him.
He's done some pretty like insanely fucked up things and, basically has been like a Trump, but in a sneaky way. Whereas Trump's just overt. Trump just he's just not even smart enough to even hide it. Whereas I think Bush was able to hide it and get away with shit in the background. But I mean, this is you couldn't, if you watched a movie saying that this was like 10 years ago, that this was what was going to happen, you just would be like, that's not, I mean, I think people, if they pitch that screenplay, people would be like, that is too out of the realms. You can't even believe it. Yeah. I mean, the other thing that terrifies me is how women's reproductive rights are being taken away. Like, what's happening in Kentucky with that? Like, have they restricted the rights there?
I'm not as familiar with the abortion rights that they're trying to take away. I know Alabama has restricted theirs and a lot of other states down south. I mean, the fact that you don't give women the ability to basically make judgment calls on their own body or what they want for their lives, it's ridiculous. But you're seeing everything that Obama basically tried to put in place. You're seeing it all being torn down and redone. Mm-hmm. I'm grateful that the Supreme Court has kind of pushed through for the LGBTQIA community plus over here. And but what's happening as far as abortion rights, it's lunacy. It's absolute lunacy when you're telling somebody that even if you were raped, you don't have the right to get an abortion. Even if you're a child that was raped, you don't have the right to get an abortion. And I was loving the Me Too movement because I was seeing this force of women and femininity basically coming and claiming their rights and saying what needs to happen over here. And then you see them vote against things like this, and you see them shut down women's ability to basically say, this is what I want to do for me, for myself. It's crazy. I mean, I'm hopeful that once things like this get to the Supreme Court, they'll get overturned. Roe versus Wade happened for a reason. Judge Ginsburg, please just hang in there, darling.
Oh my God. I send that woman white light every day. She's got pancreatic cancer for the second time. Like, who the fuck survives pancreatic cancer for the first time? But yeah, all I say is please make it to November.
Yes, please. Golly.
I mean, it's terrifying. Like, I was just seeing something about Trump had just appointed some, I think, district court judge I can't remember exactly what it was, but who openly says his lifelong goal is to overturn Roe versus Wade. And he doesn't even believe in abortion, even when the mother's life is at risk.
In danger.
So let the mother die and then the baby can die and they both die. So but what gets me is people that tend to be so anti-abortion normally support the death penalty, and which is like, what the fuck? And then the other thing is that the second that baby's born, they don't want to provide health care for the mother when she's pregnant. And the second the baby's born, fuck you, you little beggar. Like, they don't want to give it anything. So it's like, how? That's one thing if you're like truly anti-abortion, but then you've got to put a whole bunch of money in supporting all these kids that are born, right? So in New Zealand, abortion was illegal until last year, or it might even be this year.
I did not know that.
So you still could get one, but what you had to do is you had to go to a doctor and say, two doctors, and say, I'm going to kill myself if I don't get an abortion.
Wow.
And then they could do it, but they wouldn't do it before that. And a lot of, because like public, if you weren't willing to go private and pay, you'd have to wait till you're 12, 13 weeks pregnant to get an abortion as well. So luckily, Jacinda overturned that. I think that might have been this year, but on average, there is like 250 women denied abortions because they didn't follow the protocol, didn't say they were going to kill themselves, or their husband didn't want them to have an abortion.
Whoa.
Yeah. So yeah, like I would get women as clients who, like I had this one woman come to me and her parents made the appointment and they said basically, oh, she's had this baby. The baby has massive deformities. There's a lot wrong with it. She doesn't want to look after it. You need to hypnotize her to be a good mother. And I'm like, okay, interesting. So she comes and the father comes in with her. And he's like, well, yeah, she's had this child. It has major birth defects, but she doesn't want to look after it. And she's just sitting there with a face like a slapped ass, looking very unhappy. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll sort it out. Don't worry. Get the fuck out, man. Yeah, because I just love men telling me how I should tell another woman how to parent or, do anything with her body. And so she tells me that, yeah, they found out at 12 weeks that the baby had massive, massive issues. And she said, right, I don't want to have the baby. I want an abortion. And her husband actually went to court and got an injunction. They took away her passport and she was not allowed to have an abortion. And yeah, I mean, can you imagine?
No, I can't.
So she was forced to have this child and she's like, well, there you go. I don't fucking want it. Fair enough. Like, I'm sorry, but this is like Handmaid's Tale shit. And she's like, well, they're all mad at me now that I don't want to look after this baby. And I was like, you don't have to look after this baby. You were forced to have this baby. Now they force you to have it and they want you to be the one to look after it the whole time. That's fucking bullshit. Yeah. So she was like, I'm going to move to Australia. I'm like, you do it, girl. Yeah. So the dad was bringing her thinking that I'm hypnotizing her, that she's going to be this good mom. And I'm like, just give her a bit more time. And basically we're creating the plan for her to escape.
Right.
So, yeah.
Women need more allies. We need more allies. What you're talking about sounds like the goddamn 1940s or something.
I know. I just can't believe that they let that happen here. Yeah. And it's just been overturned that now it's not a crime to have an abortion. Because basically they're saying the mothers, you only could do it if the mother's life was at risk. Right. So, yeah, it's just crazy to me. But luckily that's been overturned. But I just think of all those poor women that were forced to have children that they didn't want to have. But taking away women's reproductive rights as well. It's like they're trying to put us back in time where women don't have right, people of color don't have right. It's like
they don't want to lose their privilege. And that goes for white men against and black men against women, men in general against women. They don't want to lose that privilege and power that comes with being a man, not only just in this country, but all over the world. And white people don't want to lose their privileges that they have over here. And if you don't believe you have privilege in America, you're willfully ignorant. I don't even want to waste my breath going into all of that. But there have been so many systems in play for so long, just this masculine energy that's been running everything and running rampant all over the world. And you see what happens when you let men run the show, the wars and everything that have ensued from that. And women are basically standing up and saying enough is enough. And men don't want to give up their power. They don't want to give up their power. What's the easiest way to take away a woman's ability to actually go out and make a difference in the world? Saddle her down with some kids. That'll keep her shut and out of the way for a while. But you have these, and like you said, we have unwanted pregnancies. And then once the kids are forced to be had, they don't want to give them any type of resources to help them take care of these children when they knew they didn't have what they needed to be good parents and didn't want these children. And it's just crazy. It's crazy that people are having to fight for things like the right to do what I want to do with my own body in 2020. It's 2020 and you're making women fight for the right to do what they want with their own body. Are you kidding me right now?
We have less rights now than we did 10 years ago. Like in America, it's just Yeah, there is this just white, conservative
Right.
I don't want to say Christian, but it's that fundamentalist Christian where I'm sorry, Jesus was not like that.
Thank you.
That was Jesus. And Jesus wasn't this light haired, blue eyed, like, oh, bullshit. He's from the Middle East. He was a Jew. And he's.
I saw a T-shirt at the rally that said Jesus was an unarmed black man.
Yeah,
That was
exactly.
murdered by these people. But I mean, it's just, uh, when when people feel like they're going to lose something, you're going to see an adverse reaction to that. You're going to see them go to the extremes to try and protect what they don't want to give up. And unfortunately, time is up. Time is up for the way that they treated Black people in this country. Time is up for the way they've treated women all over the world. You see this suppression and oppression of women in plenty of countries and continents, and it's just time. It's time for things to change. And you're seeing this shift happen where people are saying enough is enough. That goes for women, that goes for people of color, that goes for LGBTQIA community. Enough is enough. Nobody wants to sit back and watch somebody. The thing that I think made this George Floyd thing so big and gained so much media and popularity, or I don't even want to use the word popularity, but it got so much awareness, is because we were forced to sit in the house and watch it. Life wasn't happening the way it normally happens. And people were forced to sit there and deal with what people have been telling them all this time. And women are sick and tired and fed up. I'm hoping that Joe Biden picks a female, any female at this point, to be his running mate. Hopefully in another 4 years, you may see another woman running for president. They trust women to run their households and manage the bank accounts and take care of the children, and they trust us to do all these things. But then you don't think that we have enough common sense to tell you what we want and need for ourselves in our own bodies. Are you crazy? Are you fucking, it's fucking ridiculous that they want to give women all this power when it comes to running the finances of the home and doing all these things that they feel like we should be doing. But then they don't want to allow us to run industry, and they don't want to allow us to have a voice. I mean, you look at Maxine Waters, you look at AOC. Oh my God, I just love her.
I love her.
She gives them the shit. You hear me? You hear me?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I teach hypnotherapy, right? So this weekend I was teaching, and at the lunch break, I made them watch that thing from the Trump rally, but I also then just put on clips of her, when she's like talking to
Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah, Mark Zuckerberg, and she just calls him out. Like she's 30 years old. Yeah, but she just is like, oh, so no, just what about that? And they're just like, Of course, they hate her, but I think she'd be a good president. But I mean, I really hope Biden picks a Black woman. I think that's what we need. I think, then more Black people will be more likely to vote for Biden, because I don't know. But then who knows? Maybe that woman could then become president. Imagine the first woman president being a Black woman. How fucking cool would that be?
Exactly. But I feel like everything's shifting at that pace, that in 4 years you may see it. I mean, I can hope and keep my fingers crossed and keep going out there and doing the work and protesting and voting and doing the things that need to happen for that to be a reality over here. But Keisha Lance Bottom, she is killing it down in Atlanta. She's the mayor down there. Stacey Abrams, who should have won governor of Georgia if it wasn't for all the gerrymandering. I mean, have you seen what happened with our election last week? 95% of the polls in Kentucky were closed. 95% of the polls last week in our election for governor was closed, and 616,000 people, voters in Louisville, were forced to use one polling place. And at the rate, I think that we're saying they would have to get 387 votes a minute for everybody's vote to be counted that day. I mean, they are really just voter suppression, gerrymandering. Those things they have laws out in North and South Dakota where if you don't have a street address, you can't vote. Well, that doesn't sound like a bad thing until you look at the Native Americans that live on the res. They have
Yeah.
PO boxes. There's no streets. They don't have street addresses. So now you're telling a whole group of people that they cannot vote. I mean, it's just the things that they're doing over here to keep their power. Like I said, they're protecting their power. They're protecting their privilege. And it's changing. It's going to change. I have to believe that, because if you don't have hope and if you don't want to
Mm.
get out there and do the work, what are you doing? Why are you
Yeah.
here? But I just feel like this feminine energy that is coming through, these women that are just
Mm.
badasses and are just going out
Yeah.
there and doing and saying what needs to be said. I'm inspired by it. I love it. I love it. And Jacinda over there, I watched how she responded to the shooting you guys had over there.
I know.
I mean, she was like, oh, okay, so yeah, that's enough of guns,
Bye
which
bye.
they still can't seem to do over here. You know, they'll fight for Second Amendment gun rights over here, like they're taking their children away from them or something.
Yeah, and I mean, I believe in the Second Amendment, and I believe people should have the right to have a gun if they want one. But I also believe it needs to be registered. You need a background check. Like over here, to get a gun, it is like the most, because when I got over here, I was like, I want to get a gun. Which, like I'm American. I've never owned a gun, but I come from a family of people who are really into their guns.
Right.
And yeah, so you have to join a gun club and start practicing, and they kind of supervise you. And then someone from the gun club then has to sponsor you. And then you apply, your spouse has to say they're okay with it. If your spouse says they're not okay with it, then you can't get one.
Wow.
And then they go and they interview your neighbors. They interview the people you work with. They come to your house and they inspect that you have a gun safe that is very secure. And then they might give you the right to have a gun. So
So you mean they're responsible?
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of people do have guns over here. They're really into hunting, but who needs an automatic weapon? I'm sorry.
That's exactly my point. I don't have a problem with anybody having the right to defend themselves. Yeah, you need a
Yeah.
gun. You want a gun for your home. Something happens, like I said, I told you earlier what my job and what I'm running around doing in the middle of the night. I now carry a gun. But why you need something that shoots 50 rounds in a minute, or that you're not even using that for hunting. What are you hunting? People?
Exactly.
I don't want to destroy the Second Amendment, but like you all have in place over there needs to be protocols to make sure that the right people have access to this type of power and this type of firepower. You have movie theaters that have been shot up over here. You have schools that have been shot up over here. You have churches that have been shot up over here. You have all these different innocent people, grocery stores that have lost their lives over here to just harmless, senseless violence, because anybody can get one. Any idiot can walk into a Walmart over here and get a gun. I'm sitting there listening, like, why does your spouse have to say, yeah, I'm okay with you getting this gun? But then you look at domestic violence, and yeah, that's smart. That's smart. So own a gun. You feel like you need a gun. You're scared. You want the right to own a weapon. That's fine. But go through these protocols and take the necessary steps to be vetted to make sure that you're responsible, and most of these people have mental problems. They're not tested for their mental capabilities before they can get these weapons. I mean, it's ridiculous, the lack of care and concern that they have for the citizens over here. America's no longer a country, it's a business. And the top, I want to say 5% of the country has 87% of the wealth, and they want to keep it that way.
It's crazy, isn't it, when you think about it? I mean, when you have that much money, what's a few billion in taxes, right? You won't miss that. Like how, yeah. And don't you want a better world?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I mean, for me, I vote Labor over here, which is like the Democrats, right? And there's then what they call the National Party. The National Party is definitely more conservative, more business-based, where Labor's more people-based. And for me, it doesn't really benefit me to vote Labor. But I do, because I know that it benefits society. And it benefits all people. Like, I mean, we have a huge problem with poverty over here. Something like 80,000 kids go to school without lunch, breakfast, or shoes. And, and over here, they if you're on welfare, you just get a lump of money deposited in your bank account every week, and you can spend that on whatever you want. And so they don't have any kind of food stamp system or, I think that they need to revise that over here because they're spending a lot of money on cigarettes and alcohol and drugs, and they can spend it on whatever they want. And then kids aren't getting what they need. And then people go, oh, that's very big brother. But the problem over here, why they're not changing it is because we have lobbyists. Mm-hmm. And the lobbyists for alcohol and tobacco do not want those people not be able to spend their money on that. And it's just again, it's business that's fucking it up.
Exactly. So, ATF over here, same thing over here. These lobbyists and what they go up there and do in Washington and how they control what laws get passed and what laws don't get passed and who it supports and who it doesn't support. They don't care about the American citizens and what they need to be successful over here. You're seeing that America is not as well off as they always thought it was. I mean, you all quarantined and locked everything down. You saw Italy quarantine and lock everything down, and America could not afford to do it, or at least they claimed that they couldn't afford to do it. And then you're seeing people being herded out with these virus numbers still spiking, and it's all because of the economy. And they need money, that you have all these billionaires and Jeff Bezos, who's getting ready to be a trillionaire, that don't pay taxes.
Jesus.
They pay very little taxes, and no wonder that they're getting such huge tax breaks. Our own president doesn't want to turn over his taxes. That's being argued about right now in the Supreme Court, which is ridiculous. Every presidential candidate has turned over their tax returns as long as I've been alive. And now we're having to fight in the Supreme Court about whether he has to turn his in or not. I mean, it's just ridiculous what you're seeing over here, where the oligarchy, if you want to go old school with it, are really controlling how this country is being run. And they're not running it like it's a country. They're not running it like they care about we the people. They're running it like it's a business. And Wall Street and all these people they're feeding into that bubble, they just want to continue living the lifestyle that they're living, and they don't care that who they're hurting and who's harmed behind it. They don't care that people are fed up and people are tired and people are going broke and people are starving and people can't afford to pay. Most Americans, they look like they're doing well, but they're living in debt over here. It's everything they have is on credit,
Yeah. It's just insanity. It's so broken that I don't know if they'll ever actually really be able to fix it. It is that broken. And the Democrats are fucked as well. They are for business as well. They're not really for the people. It is. Yeah. And that's when Joe Biden was finally put forward, I was just like, fuck you, Democratic Party. I know what they're trying to do, but really that's the best you could do.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry. And I think Joe Biden is a racist. I remember watching some story where he's talking about some guy at the pool and how he wouldn't let the guy get in the pool because he had stuff in his hair. Who was a black guy. And I was like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? They probably deleted that now, but I don't.
Well, you had Kamala Harris call him out for, the way he voted about busing back when she was a kid. Yeah. And there's just a history of him doing some things that weren't good for the Black community. He's just our best chance at beating Trump, which is why where everybody is leaning. But I agree. The Democratic Party, it's just it's two sides of the same coin. When you are making under, let's say, $70,000, $80,000 a year over here, it doesn't matter who's in office. It doesn't matter who has political power. It doesn't matter who's running the country. Your life doesn't change one bit because everybody's for profit. And it's all about how to make a dollar hand over fist over here. And either you're a part of the elite or you're just left behind. Like I read The Hunger Games years ago when they came out, and I honestly can see the country shifting in that type of a direction. I know it sounds extreme, but I'm worried, that's where we're headed, to where they just need you to work in their Amazon factories and work in their Walmart stores and, pick their potatoes, whether it be through prison labor or whatever, build their automobiles. They don't need you for anything else. And you can do that from a fucking FEMA camp. So,
Yeah.
I worry about the way this country's shifting and how we're going to move forward and whether we can shift this pendulum back in the right direction, because it's not benefiting the regular American people. This is not about Black people hating white people. We don't hate white people. We
No.
hate being treated like we're less than. This is not about women hating men. We don't hate
Exactly.
men. We love men. It's just about us being treated fairly. And I
Yeah.
don't care if you read the Talmud or the Quran or the Bible, or if you're spiritual or if you're Buddhist or Hindu, any of these practices just tells you to love one another and be kind to
Exactly.
one another and treat each other fairly. And why is that so hard to do? These alt-right Christian act like, this is biblical times and all this stuff. Okay, but have you read your Bible that tells
Mm.
you to love your neighbor like you love yourself? Have you
Yeah.
read the New Testament where it talks about Jesus and how he treated people? And don't throw those rules at me unless you're willing to follow those rules yourself,
Yeah,
until you're
exactly.
willing to abide by them. So it's just, like I said, I have hope. This younger
Yeah.
generation, we got to get these old guys out of here. My
Yeah.
son has this thing where he tells me all the time, because when I want to talk to him about, Black Lives Matter and things of this nature, he's like, Mom, I don't want to hear that crap. It's not us. We're not like that. He's like, once you all die, though, it won't be this way. And I have, and, and I have to honestly, from what I'm seeing, agree with him. These
Yeah.
younger kids, once you get this old, this changing of the guard, it's got to go on and happen. We've got to get them out of here. These young kids, they are fired up. They know what's
Yeah.
right. They want to let people live however they want to live. They treat
Yeah.
people fairly. They love each other. They just want this country to operate like a country and not like a business. And I have all 100% faith in them that they're going to keep doing what needs to be doing. And I want to support them in any way I can. I show up to their rallies. I'm donating to their bail project. I'm donating to the food project that's going on in New York City, because we have underprivileged children that aren't being fed, especially while they weren't out of school
Yeah.
here too. And I
Yeah.
want to have hope for this country in the way that it's going. Yeah. Joe Biden, he has a history of being a piece of shit, but
Yeah.
unfortunately, he's a
He's
lighter piece of shit than Trump is. That
he's our piece of shit now.
he's what we got. I'm just hoping that whoever he chooses for BP, steps in
Mm.
and helps him with some policy reform and kind of steers. I think Joe Biden
Yeah.
wants to do the right thing. I just think he's lost. He's old.
Yeah.
His
He
way
is
of
old.
thinking, is outdated. Most of them
Yeah.
are in the Senate, and it's time for them to go. It's just
Yeah.
time for them to get out of there, and we need some fresh blood in there. Some people that are really going to make a change.
But here's the thing. I think that before people, the powers that be or whatever, controlled the media, right? And we only could really have on TV or see or read about who the powers that be deemed appropriate. But that's not the case anymore. Anyone can stream their message to billions of people at any time. And
Right.
so I think that there actually could be a change now. I don't know if it could happen by September, or is it November? November. Yeah, our election's in September. And yeah, I just think, I don't know, there could be an opportunity where someone else steps forward and is making sense. And because I think the majority of people think like we do. The majority of the people know we deserve health care, and that we know that people deserve equal rights, and and support all of that. And it's just these like extreme sides that manage to get into power.
Well, the reason we got a spanking with this last election back in 2016 is because Bernie stayed on the ticket and ran. So you wind up
Yeah.
splitting the votes between him and Hillary, because Hillary won the popular vote over here. A lot of people don't know
Yeah.
that. She won the popular vote, but she didn't win the electoral college, the votes in there, which,
And that's broken.
Can we get that shit the fuck out of here, please?
Yeah. Yeah, that should just be gone. It is whoever gets the most votes, that's who wins. Hello. And none of this gerrymandering shit. What the hell? Like, if I tell people about that here, they cannot, they look at me like I've grown two heads and think I'm making it up. They just can't even believe something would be that ridiculous.
Yeah, anybody that wants to come against gerrymandering, Act Blue is a really, really good foundation. It's one that I donate to. Stacey Abrams runs it. and it fights gerrymandering and voter suppression over here in the States. So if you really want to donate to something like that, Act Blue is something that I believe in, that I've donated my money to, because we've got to do something. Like the way that this country is set up, it's just hard for the right people to win. And that's what as you were saying, somebody could come out front, somebody that
Yeah.
holds the principles that most of the people in this country value, but then you're not pulling in that Republican vote that you need to push, the right person into office. So they're kind of just going with the lesser of two evils, because they don't want to swing too far to the left, because then you're going to have people that go ahead and vote for Trump when they really didn't want to, because they don't want to go so far left. I mean, I just, as people get older, and I hate to say it, as people die off, yeah, I think you're going to see the shift that you need to see happen, because these 30, 20, teenagers, they're coming out in droves, and they're not playing around. They're not
Yeah.
playing around. So I have hope in the future, which any country, if you really want to invest in who you are as a people, invest in the future of it. Invest in
Yeah.
these kids. I can't change 70, 60-year-old people's minds that are going out there and voting. But as long as we can keep hammering at it, eventually, we won't have to worry about them in due time. Hopefully it's in my lifetime. I'm wanting some change in the next 4 years, but as long as it's in my lifetime and everything keeps moving in the right type of direction.
Yeah, I was worried. Like before the pandemic, I really thought Trump was going to get in again. Like I was just like, oh God. I knew he was going to get in the first time. I just had this horrible feeling. And I met too many people that were Trump supporters. I think I've told the story in the podcast where I almost choked that guy out at a dinner party because we argued about Trump, who's another American. Poor people who hosted that party. It was not good. But I just thought there's too many people that liked him that he was going to get in. But now, after this, and what a shit show it is, that I think people are starting to realize that this guy is not capable. He doesn't, when they asked him about, even Fox is turning on Trump now. When Fox turns on Trump,
That's
the
something
shit,
going on.
he's gone. He's gone. The thing is, I don't think he's going to leave. They're going to literally have to drag him out kicking and screaming, because I don't think he'll accept it gracefully and bow out.
Well, I'm hoping that if he's not reelected, he'll be arrested. So
Yeah.
so we can only pray that happens. Trump ran on fear. And a lot
Yeah.
of times fear is more powerful than love. And he ran on people's fear of immigrants coming into this country. And he ran on people's fear of Black people. I don't know what the hell it is that they think that we're going to do if they give us 1 inch of privilege over here in this country. But he ran on fear that white people have towards people of color and immigrants and things of that nature. And he ran on the male ego's fear of what would happen if women get in power over here in this country.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He ran on the fear that people are holding on to. And then he got into office, and he's proven in so many ways that he was completely inept. He had no political background. He
God.
filed for bankruptcy, God knows how many times, like 3 or 4,
Six. Six.
Thank you.
Give it a go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I can't remember which state it was. He didn't even know was a state last year. Like, I mean, he just was completely, inept to handle the position. But he ran on people's fear. So hopefully, now that they've seen all their fears come to fruition, because he became president, I mean, they literally let him lock young Mexican and Hispanic descent people,
Oh,
kids in cages and shit. I mean, what the fuck?
babies.
America, you're better than this. I
Yeah.
plead with Americans, they're better than this. The lady that I mentioned earlier, Kimberly Jones, at the end of her rant, she says, you guys need to be glad that Black people just want equality and not revenge.
Yeah. Just civil rights.
Yeah,
Civil.
just
Like,
civil rights. If you could just give us a few of those, if
I know.
if my 12-year-old, rest in peace, Tamir Rice, can play at the park without getting shot and killed by police, if my
Yeah.
kid can walk back from the store with tea and Skittles without getting shot
Yeah.
by the police, When a black man can sit in his own home eating a bowl of ice cream without being shot and killed by a cop that thinks she's at the wrong place. When a young lady, Tatiana Jefferson, rest in power, can play video games with her nephew and at her mother's house while her mom's in the hospital without getting shot and killed. That would be nice. If
Yeah.
we can just do the normal everyday things that you all do without being murdered, thank you. When my credit score is where it needs to be and I can go to the bank and get a loan for a mortgage or a business
Mm.
loan like everybody else, that we know we would appreciate that. When you put the money into our public school systems that you put into your private school systems so our kids can
Mm.
be educated and maybe they can rise to some sort of political office or become lawyers, that would be cool. If you could just
Yeah.
give us some of the same rights and privileges that you have, treat us like we're
Exactly.
human. That's all we're asking for over here.
Yeah, I just can't understand what are they afraid of by giving equal rights to people? How does that take away from you? I cannot get my head around that. It's
It,
like
it,
we're
it
all
doesn't.
human. We all deserve respect. We're all part of this country. And yeah, even though I live outside of it now, it doesn't take away from you. It makes everyone happier, healthier, safer. It doesn't, yeah, they seem to think it makes them somehow less safe. And it's like, it's the opposite. It's true. But I find the most people that support Trump are actually the people that are negatively impacted by his policies, right?
Can we talk about that? The people in Eastern Kentucky, he promised them coal.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so coal is a dirty resource. It's phasing
Yeah.
out. Like the country's not going to be running on coal in 10 to 20 years, and it's just an unfortunate truth for people in Appalachia. But then replace the coal with more jobs. Put some jobs
Yeah.
up there. Unfortunately, Mitch McConnell's working on that with the industry out of Russia.
Hello.
So
Oh, they've got nothing to do with it.
they've got nothing to do with anything. But
Oh,
he promised them coal. He didn't bring coal back. Then he wanted to take away Obamacare, but a lot of those people up there are sick. They're sick
yeah.
from black lung. They're people in Appalachia have worked hard in those coal mines their whole lives. Black lung is a terrible disease, and a lot of them have cancer that they're up there blowing up. That's West Virginia. West Virginia as well. They're blowing up these coal mines to get the resources, to get the coal out, and it's spreading the ash and filth to the surrounding towns. People are plagued with cancer up there, but then you want to cut away their access to health care that they can afford.
Yeah.
So they've been, like you said, they've been more negatively impacted by Trump's policies than anybody else, but they still want to vote for Trump. And I just feel like communication. There's just a conversation that needs to be had, which is why I value people like you that are doing what you can to just get the word out there. If people in poor black communities could sit down with people in poor white communities and see that they're fighting these same issues, because here's the
Same.
thing
Yeah.
with the people that lead the country, they don't care about black or white. They care
No.
about green, and they don't care who they're
Exactly.
hurting. There was a professor out of LSU that wrote a book called White Trash: 400 Years of Classism in America. And it talks about
Mm.
how these poor white people that live in Appalachia and the Ozark Mountains and places like that have been systematically and purposely marginalized and
Yeah.
kept ignorant, and kept without jobs. And this was purposely done. It's a wonderful book. It shocked the hell out of me when I read it, that they
Mm.
would that white people would do this to their own, because they don't care about white or black. They care about green, and they care about marginalizing the people that they want to keep out of their way and taking
Yeah.
resources away from them. And right now they're trying to get blood from a turnip, and it's just not going to happen. So people, please go out there and vote. People, please look into the policies that this president has or has not afforded you while he's been in office. If you're up in the eastern part of Kentucky, or you're living in the mountains in West Virginia, please just read. Read, for God's sakes, what is happening to your own communities, because you have a fucking moron in office that doesn't care one way or the other. It's all about the dollar.
Yeah, that's what I can't understand is they're actually voting against their own interests. They're voting for people who are going to put in place policies that make their lives worse. And they just can't. Yeah, but they're getting their information from Fox News and Facebook, and it's tainted.
It is. It is. They're coming down hard on Mark Zuckerberg about the false information that he's letting Trump continue to put on Facebook, and whether he decides to censor him or at least put some sort of stipulation when you're reading what he's posting. I don't know. But
Well,
if
they
you
flag
go,
it, right?
yeah, if you go back to Governor George Wallace back in the 60s, he told people back then, I don't have to give poor white communities better schools. I don't have to give poor white communities hospitals or access to adequate health care. All I have to do is make them feel better than black people. And
Oh,
as long as I do that, they'll continue to vote for me. And you see that same thing happening with Trump. You know, he's not giving them what they need for their communities to thrive. He's not giving them what they need for their children to have a better opportunities at life. He's just making them feel better than people of color, and they're for some reason they're content with that. You know, but that mindset has got to change. It's got to shift if they care about what's happening up there in their areas. They've got to really get out there and read and see what's happening to their own communities and how they're voting. You know, don't get out there and vote for Mitch McConnell this year. You need some new blood in there. You want somebody to do you want somebody that's working with a Russian entity to bring jobs into your neighborhoods? No, you don't want that. There's access to other types of industries that can be put up there if you put the right people in office. You know, Amy
exactly.
McGrath, Chris Booker, I don't care who you vote for. Just don't go Mitch McConnell this year, Kentucky. Just don't do it. Just don't
He,
do it. It's like a drug. Just don't say no. You know, just say no. Just say no to Mitch McConnell.
so what was the book you mentioned that talks
Um,
about that?
it's called White Trash: 400 Years of Classism in America. It's written by a white lady, a professor out of LSU, and
I'll
she
find it.
starts with the late 1400s, and she kind of works her way forward about how this country was founded, and she talks about how white women were the first slaves brought over here because they were using them to get white men to work harder because they needed the ground turned over. They needed agriculture to start being grown over here so they could make money back in overseas. And they couldn't get the men to work. And they were like, well, if we bring them women and they get these women pregnant, and then they have a family they have to provide for, maybe they'll work. And they were selling these women, like the women had papers of this one's good at cooking, and it's an excellent
Oh,
book. It's completely
wow.
resourced and fact based. Read it for yourself. It's awesome. And then when the women didn't work, they rounded up poor white kids over there in Europe and brought them over here to work the land. And it talks about white people that lived in North Carolina and the Appalachian, things of that such, and how they were mad at them because those people were like, I'm not fucking doing all the work for y'all over here. I'm over here now. I can go do whatever I want. And they got upset with those communities of people, and they marginalized them to when they finally actually started, getting agriculture turned over and growing tobacco and things of that such over here. They marginalized those people because you didn't help us in the beginning. So you get nothing and you'll continue to get nothing. So, I mean,
Yeah.
it sounds ridiculous that you have a
No, it
group
doesn't.
of people that have been marginalized this entire time because something their ancestors did 400 years ago. But I mean, it's an awesome book if anybody wants to read it. Did you look it up? Did
Put a link.
you find it?
I've just written it down. I'll put a
Yeah.
link in the show notes of
Yeah, it's
that
an
book.
excellent book. It's excellent. It talks about how these different communities were marginalized back in the 1500s, and they're still marginalized today, and they don't even know it. And they keep voting for the people that keep them marginalized. That, like you said, they're voting for people that don't even benefit their own communities.
And they're just kind of basing it on religion, I
Yeah,
think. It is. It's
and
like, well, he's a good Christian, and so oh
you know he
yeah, there's just
he knows how to use
yeah.
those trigger words. You know,
Mm,
he knows how to use those trigger words, and like I said, he makes them feel better than people of color.
yeah.
And like I said, Governor George Wallace said years ago, that's all you have to do over here, and that community will continue to vote for you. But enough's enough. Enough's enough. Come on, people, use your brain.
Yeah. And is this the world you want to live in?
Right.
And how many people a year go bankrupt from medical bills? Yeah, or if you lose your job, you have no medical care, and it's insanity. It's just and I thought that America was the greatest country on earth. You are brainwashed to believe that, and then as soon as I left America, I was like, holy shit, we're not free. We're not. It's
They
just
have they
insane.
monetized everything over here.
Yeah,
Education, people are in student loan debt, up to their wazoo trying to get out of student loan debt where you have other countries where education is free. And people are up to if you need surgery, any type of elective surgery, especially over here, you're going to be in debt, up to your wazoo. And are you even going to get adequate medical care? If you do have some sort of insurance, if you don't have the prestigious type of insurance that you need to have to get the best care when you're sick over
yeah.
here. And it's crazy, the things that are happening over here as far as big pharma and how they've just
Mm,
flooded this country with pills, and the epidemic with pills over here is freaking ridiculous. And they just continue
crazy.
to make more and more money. There is a episode on Netflix of a show called Dirty Money. And they have a great Trump episode. It's freaking hilarious. And they also have one on Big Pharma and just what they've done as far as buying smaller prescription drug companies, getting rid of the research and development departments, jacking the pill up, to damn near
Yeah.
$1 million a pill to where people that need this medication can't afford it, and people are mortgaging their homes and taking out second mortgages on their homes just so they can afford their diabetes medication and things of that nature. It's ridiculous. It
Yeah.
is
Do you know?
absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, the diabetes of like, yeah, how much? It's like what, $700 for a thing of insulin now. With and they've just put it through the roof. Yeah, like over here, I pay $5 a prescription,
Wow.
and that's medical insurance. If you get something that's not subsidized, you might have to pay a bit more. But on average, your any prescriptions are $5, and
Yeah.
it's just I just cannot understand how like you said, it's just all about money and everything's monetized, and with the prison system being monetized, and of course there's an incentive to send people to prison.
Of course.
Yeah,
Of course.
and same with like the hospital or medical system is so monetized, and it just, I don't understand how they can make it not anymore, because there's just so much money and so much power behind it. It's almost gone too far. But I think people need to remember that we are the ones with the power. We don't realize it, but if we all get together, if we all team up, they're fucked.
Exactly. Exactly.
We have the power. We give them the money. That is our money. That is at the that the government is spending on the military and bullshit and Trump's vacations, and so I think, if enough people get together and go, no, that's not what we're doing. And I think that's what's happening now. It is a revolution that is happening. And
Yeah.
it's scary and we don't know what's going to happen. But I think, if we remember that we are the ones with the power, we can overturn all of this. But
Yeah.
we need a good leader.
Thank you. Yeah, we need direction. That's one thing I'm seeing with this movement as far as Black people over here. We need a leader, and so far I'm seeing Tamika Mallory come out. She's doing awesome at these rallies, and I'm hearing Dr. Cornel West talk. But we need leadership. We need somebody to come out and shift the country in the direction it needs to go. Calm white people down. Tell them there's nothing to fear. You don't have to be scared. We're not going to run up in your homes. But that's, like you said, the media controls everything. So you have four different companies that own every media outlet in this country, four different companies. And those four different companies are controlled by 15 people. And this is, Google it, look it up if you think I'm lying. And they're all just pushing the same message. And for all these years, they've pushed this message that has made people fear Black people, and they don't have anything to be afraid of. Is there violence in Black communities? Yeah, but there's violence in poor white communities. There's violence anywhere you go where you have poverty and impoverishment. You just see those types of things happening. But as far as just, Black people in general, you don't have anything to fear. And if we all come together, we can shift this country in a direction where everybody has equality, where women have rights, LGBTQIA plus have rights, Black people have rights. They want to talk about Mexicans coming over here as immigrants and things of that nature. We're all fucking immigrants. All of us came over here on some sort of goddamn boat, people. Everybody came over here on a boat, people, except for the indigenous natives over here. We all
Yeah.
came over here on some sort of boat, and we worked and worked and worked and worked and worked. And enough is enough. James Baldwin said, you can't go back to Poland and you can't go back to England no more than I can go back to Africa. And this is my country too. I paid as much for it. I paid just as much as you have for it. So it's just like, people calm down. Nobody wants to do to you what your ancestors did to my people when we were in slavery.
Exactly. Maybe that's a subconscious thing that they think they're like subconsciously, because they've taken away the rights, that those rights are going to be taken away from them as retribution. I wonder, I think you've actually hit the nail on the head. But it isn't, I don't think it's a black against white thing. It's a good against evil, right? It's not. I mean, obviously, Black Lives Matter, and we need to support the people that are being suppressed. But it's about, for me, it's about good people against bad people. And that comes in every color.
Exactly.
The way I was raised, you don't judge people on the way they look. You judge them on their character and how they behave and how they make you feel. And that's got nothing. People don't choose how they look.
No,
well, some people do.
But I understand completely what you're saying. I was born with this skin. I didn't choose it. But I mean, if I had a choice, I would choose it. I'm sorry. I just love being
beautiful.
Well, I'm not going to apologize for that. I love being Black. But I didn't have a choice when I was born this color. And at the end of the day, like you said, my energy is going to match your energy. So if you come to me with respect and kindness, I'm going to come to you with respect and kindness. And that's just how people need to move moving forward. Treat people how you would want to be treated. You want to claim Christian, go by that Bible, treat your neighbor as you love yourself. And what is it that Jesus says? Whatever you do to the least of my brethren, you're doing it to me. He was telling people, don't pick on the little guy. And you're honestly 100% correct when you say it's good versus evil, and you got to choose a side. I want people to be on the right side of history here, because this is a shift in history, and you can bet your bottom dollar there's going to be some change that comes out of here. And just make sure you're on the right side of it. In 40, 50 years, when they're teaching this in school, or when your grandkids or great grandkids are coming to talk to you about what happened in 2020, make sure you're on the right side of history. I am loving seeing that these statues are coming down, and I'm loving that they're getting rid of slave Aunt Jemima and all that old stuff. That's all great. But go out and vote, people. Go out and vote for the people that are going to do right by everybody, and not just to people that look and act like you. We've got to do what's right here. It's got to be good, like you said, good versus bad. You got to do what's right here, and everybody in their gut knows what's right. They know what's right. It's a willful type of ignorance that you see over here. It's not that they're ignorant. They know exactly what's happening. They can see what's happening. They're being told what's happening. It's a willful type of ignorance that has to be done away with.
Yeah. I think they really are afraid that some retribution is going to happen. Or I personally can't really understand it, but it must be, that they're going to lose out somehow. But it's like, I don't see how you can lose out. Like, how? Tell me how you're going to lose by, and I don't think we even need to pay more taxes to achieve this. It's just channeling the funds to the people, not to military, to,
billions of dollars goes to the military to fight wars, but and wars we're not even fighting, just billions every year to the military that need to go back into our school systems and our healthcare system. Elizabeth Warren, she ran on that platform that if I tax trillionaires and billionaires every other dollar, just one out of $2, if I tax every other dollar, we'd have enough money to fix everything that's going on over here in our infrastructure. And nobody wanted to listen to her. The billionaires were running scared. People were mad. They hated her. Of course they did. But
Yeah,
that's what needs to happen when people that make less than $100,000 are paying more taxes than people that make $100,000 a week.
it
There's
doesn't
a
make sense.
problem.
Yeah, that's what, because here it exponentially goes up. Well, it goes up to, once you go over, I think it's $100,000 a year, it goes up to, or maybe 150, it goes up to 33% tax. But yeah, so it does. The more you make, the more you get taxed. But then it stops. It doesn't just keep going up. Because in a lot of like Sweden and Finland and a lot of those countries, it's 50% tax.
Wow.
Yeah, can you imagine paying 50% tax? And then they
No.
pay 25% tax on everything they buy. But their
Wow.
countries run pretty well. I don't want to pay that much tax personally, but I like the New Zealand system. Yeah, where it's, yeah, the less you make, the more you have in your back pocket, and the less, yeah, they have something called working for family. So if you make under a certain amount and you have children, you get like $6,000 to $10,000 back in cash a year. So some people they're not even paying tax, they're just getting money back so that they're not going broke.
Right.
So there's solutions, and it can happen. It's just whether or not the powers that be will allow it, but that remains to
Like
be
you
seen.
said, people choose good over bad. You
Yeah,
know, people choose the right way to do things. Get out there and vote for the people that you know will create change, not just for you, but for everybody else in this
yeah,
country. You want to be land of the free, home of the brave, we the people, and all of that. Then look at everybody as we the people. You know,
yeah.
look at everybody as we the people. It's ridiculous the stuff that's happening over here, but it can change if you get out there and vote. It can change if you go out there and vote for reform on policies. It can change. It's just whether the people are going to do the right thing. Like I said, that's why I have hope in the younger generation, because eventually this older generation that keeps people like Trump in office, that keeps people like Mitch McConnell in office, they'll be gone, and then we'll
Yeah.
have some fresh blood in there.
I think there's enough people that are seeing sense, that know what's right, that are going to act on it. I think we'll probably have the biggest turnout of voters in history. I'm hoping. And I think, yeah, Black Lives Matter movement is so important. And I think people are finally kind of getting involved. Like they had a protest over here for it when we were still at like some level of lockdown. And it was like people just didn't give a shit, went anyways, didn't wear masks. And everyone was like, oh, they all need to be quarantined. But they marched down the main like city center, and they walked to the American embassy, and they all took a knee.
Oh
Like
God.
4,000 people took a knee in front of yeah, it was so powerful. It was unbelievable. And I was like, I have hope that things are going to change. Yeah. So,
I am. That's one thing that did make me cry about this movement that you see happening is 18 different countries. 18
yeah,
different countries other than United States went out there and supported Black Lives Matter. You saw people in the UK, people in freaking Germany. Who knew that
yeah,
people cared about Black Americans in Germany? I watched
they do.
the Maori people do their tribal ritual, and it brought tears
Haka.
to my eyes. It brought tears to my eyes because who knew that anybody cared about us?
Yeah.
Malcolm X back in the 60s, he was coming back from his journey to Mecca, and he stopped in Ghana. Maya Angelou was there, James Baldwin was there, and a couple of other authors and political Black activists. And they decided to go to United Nations, and they wanted to bring America up on crimes of genocide. And United Nations let them speak out of respect for who Malcolm was, but then they said they couldn't do anything because they didn't have a country behind them. When
Mhm.
it comes to Black Americans, you have this weird predicament where we don't they want us to feel like we don't have a country, but we have just as much right to this country as anyone else does. But we always feel so displaced because it's clear we're not wanted here. But then, I've never been to Africa. My dad, didn't live in Africa. My grandparents didn't, so I don't have any ties to that country over there as well. And when Malcolm
Yeah.
went back to Ghana, he asked them to go to the United Nations on his behalf. He had several countries, and none of them would. But Ghana did open up their borders to Black Americans, and they're still open now for us to come back if we can make it over there. And they have resources set in place to give us monthly stipends and things of that nature. But you just get this sense when that happened back in the 60s from reading it. I know that nobody cared about us. So to see Germans marching, to see New Zealanders marching, to see people in the UK marching, and to see them toppling their own racist statues, I mean, it does my heart good. It really, really does. It does. It makes me feel good that we have so much support all over the world and not just in the 50 states that are protesting here.
You do. And I think, yeah, I have a lot of hope that it is going to change. And I'm just going to say that it is, that Trump is going to be gone.
He is out of here. You hear me? Even if he's telling people to drink bleach to get rid of COVID. I mean, come on, people. Come
people
on.
Did it.
Yes, people did it. I think in New York City, they had 30-something calls that day to the Poison Control Center of people that had drank. It's not funny, but when you can hear something on television or through social media, and you are that easily manipulated and swayed that you will drink bleach or any cleaning product, that just tells you the type of mindless following that is happening over here. But I have to believe that most Americans are not that ignorant. I have to believe it.
I don't think they are, but this is what happens when you defund schools and you stop educating people, is they just believe anything. I don't know, but maybe that's, natural selection.
I told somebody that. I told them the same thing. And let it happen. Don't stop them from natural selection.
No. So, God. Well, it's been such a pleasure talking to you. I could talk to you for another 3 hours, but I think this is going to be the longest podcast I've ever done. So is there anything else you want people to know or to say, or?
No, just go out in your local elections. Don't just vote for the president. The attorney generals in your states and things of that nature, they have to be elected too. If you don't like what's happening with the police department, then you vote in your local election. Save your local newspapers. That's where you're going to get your real news. Stop using Facebook and social media to get your news. Read your local newspaper. They're going to tell you when you can vote on reform and policy and things of that nature. You want to help with gerrymandering, go to Act Blue. Other than that, just people do the right thing. Do the right thing. If you want, however you want to be treated, treat others that way. And just, exactly. Believe in that this country can be better.
And it can. I believe in it. The American people are very strong and they have way more power than they believe. And I think it is all going to work out. And I think we're just watching something really historic happen. And it's the old system is burning down. It's not working anymore. And it's not fun while it burns. It's really hot and it's scary. But then we're going to build something new. And it's going to be much better than it was before.
I agree.
So, well, thank you so much. And that's us for today. If you want to share this podcast or give us a review, that really helps. If you have a story you want to tell or be interviewed, I'd love to hear about it. You can email us at WTF Stories and Advice. And that's us. And just thank you so much, Deidra. It was just amazing.
No, thank you for having me, Caroline. I appreciate it.
It's a pleasure.
Aside from my soul.